The Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gets picked up while walking and protesting outside the Supreme Court, and she gets carried away in the amazing, incredible, invisible handcuffs. The handcuffs that give her the power to push her agenda, and the power for her simps to ask, how dare you question her? So we'll be talking just a bit about what happened with that, and the other people that got arrested with this as well. The House of Representatives has voted on same-sex marriage, proving once again that they don't need to rely on the Supreme Court to do all their lawmaking for them. So we'll talk about that. We'll actually read the bill. I have that up on the stack as well. Bill de Blasio has dropped out of his race for New York 10 and from electoral politics altogether. I'm not sure why yet. I've not pre-read the article, so we'll be talking about that, what this means, and why he is back out. And a mysterious fire in a transformer at the Hoover Dam, scares tourists as people think that the dam is blowing up. Meanwhile, several people in sports equipment that is skirted are seen running away from the Hoover Dam. It is going to be all of this and more. You are my favorite breakfast tacos. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Ed Heads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We have got a full slate of news to go over here, including the incredible invisible handcuffs. That's right. They're not pretend handcuffs. They are incredible and invisible. And they give the power to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to raise the power fist as she's walking by a group of people that are in support of her after she thinks that nobody's looking. So, we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about a host of other things here today. Fairly full slate here today as well, so we're going to get right into it. But before we get started, make sure you guys go check out TurnsPagesProductions.com. We are still on the start page right now, but don't let that stop you from going and checking out great shows, such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The Already Conservative, and The Porch Boys. Porch Boys having a great show last night. Lots of memes. They got through all their topics. They got through all their videos. I don't know if they put the AOC video on there because it was pretty fresh when they were going live, but still a great show. They're a great bunch of guys to be around. Go check all of them out. Also, make sure you go check out Tweets by Brit over on Twitter and KTZed as well. Go check them out as they contribute to the culture war from time to time based on what it is they have going. So go and check all that out, and let's get into the main news of the day. Let's get the live chat up so I can see what you guys are doing here. Yeah, we've got some of the new emotes up here, by the way. If you are following, you get one slate of emote. If you are subscribed, you get a second slate of emotes, and I think that's pretty cool. Looks like I see the CNN one going already. I will be talking about those guys here coming up here, but let's get into it. Let's get started. Looking at the Dow, which had an up day throughout the day yesterday, bringing itself back up to 31,827.05. It's starting to look like the economy is starting to come back together just a little bit up here. We're seeing the gas prices drop, easing some of the pain at the pump. Biden taking a victory lap yesterday. I did not put that on the stack today, but taking a victory lap yesterday, saying that with the 50-cent drop in fuel prices over the past several days, that he has saved the American family $50 a month. I'm sorry, $25 a month. He saved the American family $25 a month, which is funny because he raised their costs $150 a month and then is taking a peacock victory lap that he dropped them $25 a month. But with that being said, we are starting to see some improvement to the economy, but this is not enough to convince me to vote Democrat. And even if I was at one point a Democrat, it still would not be enough to convince me to vote Democrat because they only started putting policies back into place that would start to ease off some of the pain on the American families once they realized they were about to lose power. This is not about the American people. This is about a power grab, and you are going to be punished again for voting for the evil orange man just once they have their electoral victory secured. So, or once you vote for Republicans and then they go crash the economy back again because they have to say, see, Republicans did it! It was all them! So that's what we see coming from that. Let's look into the Bitcoin. Another indication that I do think that things are starting to shape up here. Bitcoin is up to 23,726.40. As I've mentioned, this is usually one of the better indicators of the short-term health of the economy because it's one of the most liquid assets. It's one of the quickest to buy, and it's one of the quickest to sell. So if you got a little bit of extra cash that you want to see if you can ride the wave, it's one of the quickest ones you can put in without having to go through a broker or anything else. Just grab the Coinbase app on your phone and off you go. Whereas when you go the other direction, if you need the diapers, if you need the gas, if you need the food in a very, very quick hurry, you turn around, you grab your Coinbase app, and you sell a bunch of your Bitcoin, and then you're all better temporarily. Not long term, but temporarily. So it is looking like people are trying to save some money and not go through a traditional bank to do so. I'm wary of the way that people do Bitcoin, but it's not official financial advice from me either. So watch what you're doing with that, but it's still a good indicator as to the short-term health of the economy. Bitcoin up to $23,726 and 40 US cents over the past 5 days. That is up $2,898 and 90 US cents, 13% rise over the past 5 days. So we'll continue to watch this and see where it goes. The gas is holding steady right now into the 379 mark. This is one of the first times that we haven't seen a drop, at least in my area. I don't do a national average on this. I look at my area. Your prices may reflect differently, of course. Costco in Middleton, Quick Trip at Sun Prairie, Quick Trip and Madison proper on Mineral Point are all at 378, but we do move up to the 379 mark for certain stations. Your prices may be higher or lower, may have lowered or raised over the past 24 hours, but that is what we're seeing here in the last 24 hours. Let's grab one from IBD, and let's see what it is that they have to say from Investors Business Daily. Dow Futures stock market rally breaks key resistance. Advertisement comes up onto the screen. Netflix jumps on subscriber data. Who is subscribing to Netflix again? Seriously? They haven't put any new content on. This is from Ed Carson. Dow futures fell slightly early on Wednesday, along with the S&P futures and the NASDAQ futures, with Netflix subscribers in focus and Tesla results looming. The major indices rebounded on Tuesday above some key levels after hitting resistance on Monday. Gains were broad-based, but there were a few new buying opportunities. Netflix jumped overnight on better-than-expected earnings and subscriber additions. Trucking giant J.B. Hunt and egg producer Cal-Maine also topped EPS views on Tuesday night. Well, all their competition's been burned to the ground, so why wouldn't Cal-Maine be jumping on this? Chip equipment giant ASML, and this is not ASMR, by the way. This is a chip maker, not a practice over on Twitch that is picked up by e-thoughts in order to make men empty their wallets. Top Q2 views, but guided low on full-year revenue. Tesla headlines earnings Wednesday night. Tesla earnings should now have an increase in Q2 2021, but declined substantially versus Q1, reflecting COVID-related impacts on Shanghai production. Tesla climbed 2.1% on Tuesday to 736.59, above its 50-day line and just below some short-term resistance, but Tesla is far below its late 2021 peak of 1243.49. On the futures, Dow futures lost 0.2% versus fair value, reversing from modest gains overnight. S&P 500 futures sank 0.2%. The NASDAQ declined 0.1%, with Netflix stocks providing a boost. The EU asked member states to cut natural gas use by 15% amid fresh hints that Russian gas supplies to Europe could remain severely restricted indefinitely. That may be taking a toll on Dow futures. Yeah, no, just stop cooking. Although I'm pretty sure the EU probably has converted over to electric because it has less emissions. Just stop cooking. Stop heating your home. Why are you being greedy? The 10-year yield topped 5 basis points to 297. Crude oil prices fell more than 1%. Copper futures rose nearly 2%. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into the actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we see for that. Let's grab one briefly from CNBC, and then we get into the amazing invisible handcuffs. From CNBC, stock futures slide after big gain in prior session as investors brace for more earnings reports. From Carmen Reinecke, U.S. futures traded lower Wednesday as traders continue to review corporate reports in a busy earnings season. The Dow dipped 72 points, or 0.2%, and the S&P and the Nasdaq declined 0.2% and 0.2% respectively. Investors are bracing for choppy earnings season even after coming off a sharp rally in the previous session. They search for more clues into the state of the economy. Despite Tuesday's more positive trading session, we don't expect a sustained improvement in market sentiment until investors get greater clarity on the outlook for the economy, central bank policy, and political risks. UBS's Mark Hayfel wrote in a Wednesday note, "You want to talk about a political risk? Again, as I mentioned at the top of finance, everything is looking, I almost said great, but it's not looking great. Everything is looking good right now. It's looking like investment is coming in. People are getting more money back into their savings after saving $50 a month on fuel. Everything is looking fantastic right now." But with that being said, we all know that as soon as either Democrats come into power, they can go back to try to force their agenda down your throat again, only changing course when it comes close to time to win another election coming up and coming forward, or they can go back and try to crash things because Republicans are evil. We did to show how bad they are with the economy. So we'll see what happens with that. Despite Tuesday's more positive trading session, I don't expect a sustained improvement in market sentiment until investors get greater clarity on the outlook for the economy, said UBS's Mark Hayfel on a Wednesday note. A report from the Mortgage Bankers Association pointed to more pain for U.S. consumers as they deal with higher prices and interest rates. Mortgage demand declined more than 6% last week compared to the prior week, dropping to its lowest level in 22 years. Netflix surged more than 7% in after-hours trading after saying it lost only 970,000 subscribers in the second quarter, less than the 2 million it had previously projected. The streaming giant's earnings per share also came in above analysts' expectations. Netflix surged 7% after they stanched the bleeding. They still lost almost 1 million subscribers. Who is investing in this? Wow. People really are stupid. Anyway, that's what we see coming off of that. Let's get into the main news of the day. Starting here with CNN. Democratic lawmakers, including Ocasio-Cortez, Tlaib, Speer, and more, arrested in abortion rights protest in front of the Supreme Court. From Edward Isaac Dover. I want to see this video. I want to see how CNN goes to spin this. By the way, we have the uncut video right here, but we're going to see how CNN spins this first. I am desperately curious about this.
We won't go back. 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 Abortion rights are under attack. Abortion rights are under attack.
You can kind of see it there, but they are very, very selectively editing the camera to where you don't... Like, you would have to be really looking and already know that she was walking around with pretend handcuffs. the way that they cut this together. That's amazing, CNN production staff. Bravo. All for a photo op.
You're currently participating in illegal demonstration activity. Cease and desist or you will be arrested.
Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down!
Insurrection, by the way. All right, that's what CNN had to say about that, or show on their heavily produced video. Let's see what they have to say. More than a dozen Democratic lawmakers of Congress were among those arrested by Capitol Police on Tuesday afternoon as part of an abortion rights protest in front of the Supreme Court. Wearing specially made green bandanas with "Won't Back Down," they marched from the Capitol to the court, which has been fenced off for weeks since shortly after the leak of the draft decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Within 2 minutes of their arriving, police began ordering them to cease and desist, and instead they sat on the street and were one by one led off by officers as they chanted, "We the people, united, will never be divided." So, as the Capitol Police were dividing them, they were saying, "We won't be divided." Let's see. The U.S. Capitol Police tweeted demonstrators are starting to block 1st Street, Northeast. It's against the law to block traffic, so officers are going to give our standard 3 warnings before they start making arrests. Capitol Police later said they arrested 34 people, including 16 members of Congress. Among those arrested, Assistant Speaker Katherine Clark of Massachusetts, Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts, which I've got a separate article for that, Barbara Lee of California, Jackie Spear of California, Sarah Jacobs of California, Ilhan Omar of Somalia, Bonnie Watson-Coleman of New Jersey, Andy Levine of Michigan, Rashida Tlaib of Palestine, Jan Schakowsky of Illinois, Madeline Dean of Pennsylvania, Cori Bush of Missouri, Carolyn Maloney, about to be formerly of New York, Nydia Velasquez of New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez of Twitch, and Elma Adams of North Carolina. So that's their twist on this, and we saw the video, and as I said, if you didn't already know about the incredible invisible handcuffs, I'm actually going to replay this here. If it loads...
We won't go back! We won't go back!
Like, on that very, very, very brief moment where you can see the wrists before the officer walks back in front of her and we cut off before he walks past her. If you weren't looking for that, you would believe that she's walking away in handcuffs. If you weren't specifically looking to see if they had the shackles on her wrists. Let's look at the uncut version. So there she goes. Big smile. Big smile. Yeah, I got arrested, okay, puppy? I fight the good fight, okay? Look at me. Look at, I got arrested. And then she gave herself away. Watch as the cop goes behind her, and there's the power fist in the air. I'm so impressed, okay? I got the handcuffs on. And a lot of people, a lot of her little simps are running out there trying to come out and say, hey, you know, she was just holding her hands behind her back. Who crosses their hands behind their back like that? Unless they're trying to make an imagery. This was all a photo op. Nothing about this woman is genuine. And yes, of course, as I pointed out, this part here got clipped out of the CNN clip. But what does that look like from the front? You see the hands behind the back. Officer hand on, and trust me, dude, this dude's in on it. If they didn't go out there with the intent, express purpose of coming out and making a show for her like that, if he didn't go into that with the express intent purpose, when he got up to her, she looked at him and said, okay, puppy, here you go. I will let Riley record us later on today. If you just do this, okay? If you just let me cross my arms behind my back and put your hand on my shoulder like you're pushing me out, okay, puppy? Make it look like I got arrested, okay? LP of Tennessee, why is she pretending to be handcuffed? Let's look at the replies on that, just to see how many people come out and say, she's actually handcuffed. Huh. Why is she pretending to be a representative? Oh, looks like most of the rest of the replies got deleted or hidden by Twitter. All right, what else do we have here? From KSTP 5, ABC out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, U.S. Rep. Omar arrested in D.C. amid protest. U.S. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, D. Somalia, has been arrested in Washington, D.C. Omar's staff confirmed the arrest on Tuesday afternoon. The Congresswoman issued the following response on social media. Today, I was arrested while participating in civil disobedience action with my fellow members of Congress outside the Supreme Court. I will continue to do everything in my power to raise alarm about the assault on reproductive rights. And my husband, not my brother husband, the other husband, will get millions more dollars funneled through my campaign. Where did she cut this? Oh, she cut it in the other direction of, oh, well, we're not going to make it look like she's handcuffed. She cut it on the other side. Just a brief glimpse, again, if you were looking for it, to see the hands held behind the back like they're handcuffed. And she's doing it too. Look at her. It's hard to see. It's a little grainy. Let's blow that up and see if that works a little bit better. Hands behind her back. No police escort. Pretend handcuffs. Earlier in the day, Omar's office said that the Congresswoman would be participating in the event at the U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday to protest the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Omar was expected to attend the event with other lawmakers, including fellow Democrats. In addition to Omar, a number of lawmakers at the protest confirmed on their official Twitter accounts that they were arrested. Cori Bush. The Supreme Court will not stop us! Even though they arrested us, they won't stop our organizing, agitating, and legislating for justice. We got this. Call Me Kay over on Twitter, Kristen, you guys are familiar with her, brought up a good point. and pointed out the fact of, hey, let's go see some mugshots. Let's see some arrest record. Let's see any record out there in the universe that shows that this happened to these people. Other than just video, poorly edited to either show the power fist or show the pretend handcuffs, but not both. Another Channel 5, another ABC 5 in fact, from WCVB out of Boston, also an ABC 5. Mass Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, Catherine Clark, arrested outside of the Supreme Court.
But police say they arrested 35 people. That includes 17 members of Congress.
Cease and desist or you will be arrested.
Massachusetts Congresswomen Ayanna Pressley and Catherine Clark among the lawmakers arrested today outside of the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C.
If we don't get it, shut it down!
In this video, you can see Congresswoman Pressley being escorted away. The sign she is holding reads, "My body, my choice." The lawmakers were protesting the Supreme Court's recent decision to overturn abortion rights protected under Roe v. Wade.
Our body, our choice!
Representative Pressley releasing this statement following her release, reading in part, "Today we put our bodies on the line to defend abortion rights because the stakes in this fight could not be higher. Due to the cruelty and callousness of this court, millions of people now face insurmountable barriers to abortion care and the health of our most vulnerable."
Give that sacrifice to Moloch, folks. I know it's coming in the $10 tier over on Twitch.
Currently participating.
Those of you in the Discord know what's coming too, by the way. With that.
Illegal demonstration activity.
This picture capturing Congresswoman Clark as she was taken away. Representative Clark saying on Twitter, "The extremist Republicans are determined to take us back in time and take away our rights. They can arrest me, but we won't allow them to arrest freedom." And Capitol Police say the arrests were for crowding or obstructing. Live.
Oh yeah, no, they can go up in front of the Supreme Court and hold signs. And by the way, I'm convinced they knew the law in D.C. I'm convinced they went out into traffic just so they could get the reaction, just so they could get it on tape of them out there. Oh no, I got arrested. What do I do? What do I do, puppy? Because it's not like they've stopped protesting. From the New York Post. AOC fakes being handcuffed after arrest at abortion rights protest. Remember that brief time where it was racist to call her AOC? Did that ever actually end, or did they just stop caring? Far-left rep Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez, D-Twitch, was roundly mocked on social media Tuesday after she put her arms behind her back to imitate being handcuffed following an arrest at a pro-abortion demonstration outside the Supreme Court. The Bronx and Queens lawmaker was gently escorted away by a Capitol Police officer, along with fellow city rep Carolyn Maloney, after blocking traffic outside the court building. Chavez kept up the charade of being restrained for a few steps before raising her fist to supporters watching from the sidewalk. She then crossed her wrists behind her back again in a faux handcuff position. With that big smile on her face. The clip spread like wildfire, and conservative commentators were quick to chime in. AOC Biscuit pretends to be in handcuffs while she was escorted away from the Supreme Court, the official account for the conservative paper Washington Free Beacon tweeted. "Oh my gosh, AOC faking handcuffs," wrote Republican commentator Matt Whitlock. "This is too much." The Capitol Police must have put invisible handcuffs on AOC, tweeted political analyst Carmen Kinsey. "You guys, AOC is such a victim, she had to pretend that the big mean policeman put her in handcuffs. She probably thinks he wants to date her," said conservative columnist Tim Young. AOC is such an expert at getting attention and the narrative building that she pretended to be handcuffed, just so she would have this image on social media. There are no handcuffs in her, tweeted businessman Jason Howerton. Rashida Tlaib is clearly not pretending to be handcuffed. Although I don't know who the guy is next to her that is also probably pretending to be handcuffed. Yeah, because there he is out there without his handcuffs on. So arms behind his back for the photo op. Oops, okay, well, keep it moving. Andy Levine, by the way, is who that is. Note the handcuff pose, abandoned only to raise her fist in the air, the queen of gestures, Britt Hume said. AOC's office did not immediately respond to the Post's request for comment on the incident. However, she later addressed the fake handcuffs accusation during an informal Q&A on her Instagram. Republicans' favorite puppy is to make conspiracy theories about everything to distract you and keep you from talking about what's actually important. Like putting your hand behind your back like you're in handcuffs. Which is the fact that they're trying to take away your rights to bodily autonomy, okay, puppy? You live in New York and DC. Literally, nothing is going to change for you. Not a damn thing. In fact, it might get a little bit easier. While speaking into her $1,200 iPhone on an Instagram story. If I was faking that, why would I intentionally fist bump somebody? According to Capitol Police, 35 people, including 17 members of Congress, were arrested. The booked lawmakers include Rashida Tlaib, Jackie Speer, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Andy Levine, Barbara Lee, Cori Bush, Catherine Clark, Nadia Velasquez, Jan Schakowsky, Madeline Dean, and Sarah Jacobs. Okay, let me see mugshots. I need to see mugshots for these ones because I don't believe you. Grainy video of Omar also showed the squad member walking several steps with her hand behind her back. As if handcuffed, she too raised her right arm in a clenched fist salute without any difficulty. Hey, you know, some people did something. Let's grab one from Newsweek. Basically, I only have this one here so we can watch the MTG video. Just a second. I want to see how this is going to come back up.
And I just had to come on here real quick and tell you what I just saw happen up here in Washington, D.C. Well, you know, the Democrats are so busy destroying our country. They're failing so badly. Inflation is out of control. Gas prices are so high. Our border is being completely invaded every single day. Crime rates in cities have gone up so much. Hundreds and hundreds of percentage points, and the Democrats can't convince their voters to get out and vote, so they're lying to them. Well, let me just tell you what we actually witnessed here in Washington, D.C. Miss AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, had to fake that she was being handcuffed by Capitol Police while she was out there feigning her fake outrage over the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade. And she's doing this all for the pictures, and it's a big show for the media, when in reality, in her district in New York, women can still get abortions up until the day of birth. You see, the problem with the Democrats is they're nothing but a bunch of liars. Not only are their policies horrible, their policies are failing, their president has dementia, their vice president can't even make a coherent sentence, and then they're ruining everyone's lives. So they can't come up with anything good, so they have to lie to you. because they think if they can make Democrat voters angry, they'll actually forget about the inflation that's causing them to not be able to afford food at the grocery store. They think if they can make them angry, that Democrat voters will forget about how high gas prices are. And they think if they make Democrat voters angry, then they'll forget that, you know, there's fentanyl poisonings happening all over the country at record high rates, and it's the #1 cause of death for 18 to 45-year-olds. So Democrats are lying. Let me tell you what they're doing. Here's how they're lying. This week, I mean, we already know that they're pretending that abortion completely went away, when in reality, overturning Roe versus Wade in the Dobbs decision just send it back to the states and let the states decide to make their own laws. So, you know, the most outrageous places where they're having plenty of abortion is in California and New York, and AOC is from New York. Her district is falling apart. People are getting stabbed.
All right, that's enough of her. I can't stand her. But yeah, and I'm glad I opened that up in another tab, because there's personal profile right up there. Right up on top. So we got the audio. We didn't get the video off of that. Yeah. So there's that. There are some other things that were going on with us here. So Salty Cracker did a quote tweet from Tim Runs His Mouth. However, that one got deleted. Salty Cracker says, "They were going to lie to you until you all shared out the video of that dip." There might be kids watching. AOC raising her fists. Jared says, "Tweet's been deleted." Mike Oxbot says, "Too bad I got the screenshots." And I said, "Care to share for those late to the party?" And then he shared out what he had over there. Although this isn't the Tim Runs His Mouth one, as far as I can tell. But I still said he rocks, and he followed me for this one here. So I hope that he's watching. He sees that I called him out for this. So thank you for that. Esme Murphy tweets out, reporter anchor WCCO TV, and most of all, proud hockey mom, tweets out, Rep Omar says she was given a ticket and will have to pay $50 fine. Ooh! Picture was taken while she was in custody. No fingerprints. She and another female MOC were arrested today while protesting at the Supreme Court for abortion rights. Correction, it's not clear in this video Ilhan that she's in handcuffs. She says she's been taken into custody. Along with other MOC during a pro-abortion rights protest, it looks at the end of this clip that she is not in handcuffs. Staff confirms in this video of Ilhan Omar under arrest and the handcuffs. She and other female members were arrested in a protest supporting abortion rights in front of the Supreme Court today. So yeah, they tried to run off. I mean, Salty Cracker, full on correct on this one. I know this dude is famous. I just don't know what he's famous for. I've heard that name before. But yes, pointing out the obvious, that they were going to try to ram this down your throat. To say that the Capitol Police and all police were bad people and they arrest. And it's just that the good Democrat protesters turned over for it, and the evil Republican ones made an insurrection. And then we realized that it was all for show. Let's see, what else do we have here? So, Crowder tweets out, AOC, we can see you're not really in cuffs, dummy. And Jonathan the goalie tweets back and says, apparently they were all escorted to a VIP section where they then posed for photos with cops while another cop holds the camera. Although holding the camera, I would definitely have to ask, is that another cop or is that Riley in a cop uniform? Because we know who loves holding the camera. And there are people, by the way, zooming in that are saying that this one here appears to be Cortez herself. Because of the half of the face, and of course we see what facial recognition is done with the mask, but with half the face, I actually can't tell if that's her or not. It does look like her on the eyes, but in the arrest video, she didn't have sunglasses on top of her head, and now she does, so I'm going to call that a maybe. But regardless, everybody was escorted back over to a VIP section and set up to be crisis actors. What else do we have? One more. There it is. The arrest of the squad was pre-planned. Screenshots of Jeremy Slevin tweeting out, members of Congress, including Ilhan, will be participating in a civil disobedience at the Supreme Court, potentially including arrests, shortly, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Time. And Slevin is a competent strategy for Ilhan Omar, amateur everything else. Was this planned? Did they go out and plan to do this? It sounds like it to me. They planned to get arrested. They weren't getting enough attention by just running their mouths otherwise. So, let's go get arrested. Everything is fake with these people. Now, with this being said, we do have to go back and point out what else was going on in Congress. So, from the Hill, we've got a little bit of legislation to talk about here. Actually, I want this over here. From the Hill, House Democrats tout bill to add 4 seats to the Supreme Court. Do you know why they want to add 4 seats to the Supreme Court? Because when it stops going their way, they have to go and change the rules. From Julia Mueller. A group of House Democrats called for legislation on Monday that would add 4 seats to the Supreme Court, lamenting an ultra-right-wing branch that just overturned Roe v. Wade's decision on abortion rights. The 8 lawmakers cited recent Supreme Court decisions that rolled back Miranda rights throughout a New York gun control law, allowed religion to surface in schools, as well as the Dobbs v. Jackson women's health decision that overturned the right to abortion in Roe, in saying that we need to add new justices to the court. Hank Johnson of Georgia is the lead sponsor of the 2021 Judiciary Act, called the current makeup of the Supreme Court at crisis with itself and with our democracy, where basic freedoms are under assault from the 6-3 conservative supermajority on the bench. The Supreme Court isn't susceptible to the popular vote the way Congress is, Johnson said, and it has used that fact to amass power. It's making decisions that usurp the power of the legislative and executive branches, he said. Are you kidding me? How do these folks get away with lying like this? This is a full, flat-out lie. In fact, if you'd have read the decision, you would know that the Alito's decision came out and said, hey, we don't have the power to do this. Go legislate it. Usurping the power of the legislative and executive branches. Are you joking? And it was the same thing, even though, yes, this was a usurp of the power from the executive branch, but when they did the executive branch, they went around and pointed it back to the legislature and said, hey, the executive branch doesn't have this power. Go legislate it. Whoops. Mic check. Headphone check. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Usurp power. If it is this important to you, go legislate it. And we'll be talking about that in just a second when we look at H.R. 8404. Facing Republican opposition and some Democratic skepticism, the bill has little chance of becoming law. But it illustrates the deeper anger among progressive Democrats about the court's direction under 3 conservative justices nominated by former President Trump, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Coney Barrett. Those 3 justices have radically altered the direction of the court, which now has twice as many conservative justices as liberal ones. Kavanaugh replaced Justice Kennedy, a previous swing vote, who had been nominated by the court by a Republican, while Barrett replaced liberal Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Adding to Democratic anger, a GOP Senate bloc former President Obama's last nominee to the court, Merrick Garland. What a phenomenal idea that was, looking back in hindsight, by the way. That corrupted piece of garbage. Who is now the corrupted Attorney General who is using his office to go back after his political enemies. Gorsuch ended up being nominated to the court in place of Garland. Introduced last year, the Judiciary Act has now progressed into Congress. Some Democrats wary of the proposal are concerned that the expansion would open up the court for Republicans to push more of their nominees into the openings. Yeah, why not have 101 justices after we get done battling back and forth? The nightmare of the scenario of the GOP court packing is already upon us, said Mondaire Jones of New York. That's how he got this far-right 6-3 majority in the first place. What packing? If they wanted to pack the court, and Mitch McConnell, in his corrupted way of, I just want to win, okay? If they wanted to pack the court, they had a clear shot to do so in 2017. After Gorsuch, it would have been like nothing for McConnell to run back up and say, okay, well, we have 13 districts out there, so we should have 13 seats on the Supreme Court. Mr. President, would you agree with that? Okay, let's come in here and put 4 more seats on this here, so we can make sure that we have a conservative majority for life. On top of the fact that he would have got the other 2 justices after that. So he would have had 7 justices. And how much screaming and wailing and gnashing of teeth would have been out there? Yes, they're absolutely right to be worried about this. Because they would be... It opens the door and they can do that. You change the rules and now you've got this sitting over here. But McConnell, in a rare bit of praise, looked back and said, well, this is going to open them up, and they're going to bring it up to 17 seats or 21 seats to try to erase what it is that we have, and he left the issue alone. Republican politicians made controlling the judicial branch part of their platform, said Mark Takano of California, adding that the court has gone rogue and become a radical institution. No, I argue it's always been a radical institution. It's just radical in making decisions that you liked. Of 72-year-old Justice Alito, Johnson said, you can see the gleam in his eye as he thinks about what he wants to do to decimate the rights of the people and put us back in the dark ages. Ugh! Trump nominated Gorsuch, Barrett, and Kavanaugh in their 50s. They're going to be here a while, Johnson said. Good. Good. And again, the worst part of this entire thing is that we probably wouldn't be having this conversation if Ginsburg had stepped down under Obama. We wouldn't even be close to having this conversation. In fact, this probably would have been 5-4 in favor of keeping abortion if Ginsburg had stepped down under Obama. If she would have gone up before McConnell was the majority leader in Congress, was it Harry Reid? Or did Schumer? Has Schumer been the majority leader in the Senate? Or was it still Reid under the first part of Obama? I think it was still Reid of Nevada. She'd have stepped down under Reid, who had no problem ending the legislative filibuster. And even back then, he probably could have nominated somebody and said, you know, this person's a radical progressive, but I can get up here and I can talk to the people. I can talk. And he could talk, by the way. I'm going to tell him that this is the most moderate choice out there. That this person is actually kind of conservative. And they'll believe me, because I'm Barack Obama. And none of this would be happening right now. But Ginsburg, in her pride, said, I have to be nominated by the first woman president, replaced by the first woman president in history. All right. Let's talk about same-sex marriage. House passes same-sex marriage protections in response to Roe ruling, with murky Senate path ahead. And here is my big question. Why didn't you do this in 2010? While you were busy trying to cram down the ACA and socialize healthcare, I do appreciate the fact that you're doing this. Taking the initiative this time instead of waiting for something that you will call egregious to come out of the Supreme Court, even though, like Ted Cruz said on the full clip, not the temporary Ron Filipkowski clip, there's really not going to be a lot of appetite to do this, in spite of the fact it's the wrong decision. There's not going to be a lot of appetite to do this because there are so many people that are entered into it. It's going to be the same thing when the ACA falls. There's a bunch of people on a government program. It's really hard to get rid of a government program once there are people that are on it. Because then you've got to go tell a bunch of people, hey, you actually have to be responsible for yourself. And, well, especially with millennials coming into middle age, it's really hard to convince people to be responsible for themselves. I'm surrounded by these morons. Many of them are the same age as I am. But let's read here. The House on Tuesday passed legislation to codify same-sex marriage nationwide and strengthen other marriage equality protections in a direct reaction to the Supreme Court's recent ruling that overturned long-standing federal abortion rights. The bill, which passed 267 to 157, was expected to make it through the Democrat majority in the House, but faces an uncertain future in the Senate, where passage will require at least 10 Republican votes. 47 Republicans voted for the bill alongside all Democrats. Rep. Richie Torres, the first openly gay Afro-Latino member of Congress. Wow. How many boxes can you check all at once? I'm so oppressed! Presided over the vote. Of course he did. Because why wouldn't he? The Respect for Marriage Act would establish that marriage is considered valid under federal law if it was legal in the state where it was performed. The bill would explicitly bar anyone from denying full faith and credit to an out-of-state marriage based on sex, race, ethnicity, or national origin, regardless of any individual state laws. It would grant the U.S. Attorney General the authority to enforce that rule through civil action. So, one of the things that goes along with this is that this does not do what Democrats believe that this does, that this forces states to adopt a same-sex marriage. Because remember, states are the ones that are doing the licensing, and the Congress, in the Founders' Infinite Wisdom, doesn't have the power to mandate that states do or recognize anything. It's part of the issue that they're having trying to codify Roe as well. The courts can mandate and force that you do something, but the Congress, it just has a lot more legal hurdles to jump through. But what this is doing is, say you're in Wyoming, and the Cheneyites, the neocon branch of Republicans, come out and say, hey, we don't have to let them gay people, those queer homosexuals, come out there and get married no more. It's going to be a great day, Tater. And once they do that, the gay people, the 4 gay people that live in Wyoming, go out to California to go have their nuptials done. Now, Wyoming doesn't have to recognize their marriage anymore if Obergefell falls, which I don't, again, see any clear indication that it's going to. This bill allows the DOJ to go back and sue the states that don't recognize it if the ceremony is done, the license is done in another state. Wyoming doesn't have to issue the license anymore, but they have to recognize the federal benefits and the marriage benefits if the license is issued in another state. And we'll read through this here briefly. This is H.R. 8404, co-sponsored by, like, everyone. Gerald Nadler speaking for almost everybody in the Democratic caucus. A bill to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act and ensure respect for a state regulation of marriage and for other purposes. Section 1, short title, the act may be cited as the Respect for Marriage Act. Section 2, repeal of the section added to Title 28 U.S. Code by Section 2 of the Defense of Marriage Act. Section 1738C of Title 28 U.S. Code is repealed. Full faith and credit given to marriage equality. Chapter 115 of Title 28 U.S. Code is amended by this act as further amended by inserting after Section 1738B the following. Section 1738C, certain acts regards records and proceedings and the effect thereof. In general, no person acting under color of state law may deny full faith and credit to any public act, record, or judicial proceeding of any other state pertaining to a marriage between two individuals on the basis of sex, race, ethnicity, or national origin of these individuals, or the right to claim arising from such a marriage, the basis of that such a marriage would not be recognized under the law of that state on the basis of the sex, race, ethnicity, or national origin of these individuals. Man, they're going to try to make this into a racial thing. Enforcement by the AG. The AG may bring a civil action in the appropriate U.S. District Court against any person who violates subsection A for declaratory and injunctive relief. Private right of action. Any person who is harmed by a violation of subsection A may bring a civil action to the appropriate U.S. State's District Court against the person who violated such subsection for declaratory and injunctive relief. State defined in this section, the term state has the meaning given under Section 7 of Title 1. Section 7, Title 1 of the U.S. Code is amended to read as follows. For the purpose of any federal law, rule, or regulation in which marital status is a factor, an individual shall be considered married if that individual's marriage is valid in the state where the marriage was entered into, or in the case of marriage entered into outside of any state, if the marriage was valid in the place where it was entered into, and the marriage could have been entered into in a state. In this section, the term state means state, the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, or any other territory or possession of the U.S. For the purposes of subsection A, determining whether marriage is valid in a state or the place where entered into, if outside the state, only the law of the jurisdiction applicable at the time of the marriage was entered into or may be considered. Section 5, severability. If any provision of this Act or any amendment made by this Act or the application of such provisions to any person, entity, government, or circumstance is held to be unconstitutional, the remainder of this Act or any amendment made thereby or the application of such provision to all the persons, entities, governments, or circumstances shall not be affected thereby. That's the code in there that says if the Supreme Court strikes anything down, everything else stands. So this is what this is. And again, they can't go out and force Wyoming to issue the marriage license. But they can force Wyoming to recognize the marriage. Which I don't necessarily agree with either, but it is what it is, and it's the world that we live in. Alright, from CNN. More than 100 million in the U.S. face excessive warning or heat advisories as a dangerous heat wave continues. Otherwise known as, it's summer. Put on the shorts and turn on your air conditioning. We go through this literally every year. This has actually been a quite mild year. Last year I had the air conditioner on almost every single day. This year, not so much. In fact, yesterday was the first time I turned my air conditioning on in a month. From Peyton Major, Judson Jones, and Amir Vera. Heat alerts cover more than 20 states today and Wednesday across the southern plains and the parts of the Northeast, and temperatures will soar above the century mark for 60 million people over the next week, all while a similar heat wave is bringing all-time record temperatures to Western Europe. Dangerous heat will continue to impact large portions of the U.S. this week, with now more than 100 million people under excessive heat warnings or heat advisories, the Weather Prediction Center said, just like we go through every single year. And again, from my recent memory, the temperatures across Texas here, with the exception of a little bit here around the Oklahoma line, are pretty on par with what we typically see. It does seem to be getting a little bit excessive over here along the state line, but other than that, I mean, we usually see triple-digit temperatures this time of year. In fact, we've usually seen them considerably earlier in the year. Alright, some more state stuff here. Kansas to vote on abortion rights in the first statewide test after Roe's demise. From Gabriella Porter. A fight over abortion access in Middle America is roiling in the hills and plains of Kansas, where voters will decide whether the state's constitution should go on protecting the rights to terminate a pregnancy. The August 2nd vote is the first statewide electoral test of abortion rights since June 24th, when the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, the landmark 73 ruling that legalized abortion nationwide. The divisive issue has animated political campaigns nationally ahead of a congressional election on November 8th. Interested groups on both sides have contributed big money. Both have been seen knocking on doors in Wichita and the Kansas suburbs of Kansas City, Missouri, in a race to win over voters with moderate views on abortion. Kansas Republicans have been pushing for state constitutional amendment to scrap abortion rights since 2019, when the Kansas Supreme Court ruled the Constitution protected the rights to abortion. Kansas will allow abortion up to 22 weeks in pregnancy, with several additional restrictions, including a mandatory 24-hour waiting period and mandatory parental consent for minors. It has more lenient abortion policies than some neighboring red states, although it's a deeply conservative state that Trump won with 56% of the vote in 2016 and 2020. The proposition would amend the Kansas Bill of Rights to say there's no state constitutional right to abortion, and enable the Republican-led legislature to regulate it much further. Well, we'll see where that goes. I believe, let's look at Kansas here for just a moment. Let's see. State facts about abortion. Does not look like. Looks like they pretty much got heartbeat bill and life endangerment. The state prohibits abortions performed for the purpose of sex selection. No, they have 20 weeks. Kansas has 20 weeks currently, but it looks like they're trying to change out the Constitution to make it much more restrictive. Kansas is actually one of the more lenient ones. So that's what we see for that. Let's talk about Bannon. From the USA Today, jury in Bannon contempt trial expected to be seated Tuesday. Opening statements to follow. From Kevin Johnson. Jury selection in the contempt trial of former White House strategist Steve Bannon is expected to be completed early Tuesday after a full day of questioning, in which several prospective panelists expressed little regard for the longtime Trump aide, while many reported that they had monitored the House committee's investigation of the Capitol Selfie Fest. U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols qualified a pool of 22 candidates on Monday, from which 12 jurors and 2 alternates will be seated for trial. Nichols said opening statements in the case would begin immediately after the jury is seated. The often tedious process of an individual juror examinations revealed stark assessments of the case, and the flamboyant defendant accused of defying the Special House Committee's demand for testimony and documents in the January 6, 2021 investigation. One man's interview ended after one answer. "I have formed an opinion about the case," said the man wearing an open-collar yellow shirt. "The opinion is that Bannon is guilty." Dismissed. Bannon, who was seated at the defense table, conferred regularly with his attorneys but displayed no visible reaction. The juror candidates were referred to by number, not by name, to protect their identities. Another panelist, who noted his past work as an intern at the office of former Senator Claire McCaskill, simply said, "I'm not a fan of Steve Bannon." Nichols also dismissed the former congressional intern, saying there was no reason to get close to that line that raised questions about his partiality. Bannon's attorneys had sought to delay the trial, citing excessive pretrial publicity relating to media coverage for the January 6 committee's public hearings, but Nichols rejected multiple requests last week. Well, in all fairness for that, and I do agree that they should be holding this back until the unselect committee is done, but let's be realistic, nobody's watching it. The only people who are watching the unselect committee were people who already believe that the frog walk is coming for Donald Trump already. Because it confirms and reaffirms their views. I want to see where this judge is, what district he's in. Carl Nichols. District Judge Carl Nichols. What district are you in? Oh, he's in D.C., so Bannon can't get a fair trial anyway. That's going to make things all kinds of interesting. Now, this is only a contempt charge, so this is going to come out to a fine. But of course, it's going to happen in D.C. Why that? Why wouldn't it? I would have had to change the venue almost immediately if I was a lawyer for Bannon. Alright, Steve Bannon thought that he was above the law, prosecutors say in contempt trial. From Ryan Riley and Daniel Barnes. Former Trump chief strategist Steve Bannon decided he was above the law when he blew off the House Select Committee investigating the January 6 Selfie Fest. A prosecutor told jurors on Tuesday in the opening statements of Bannon's contempt of Congress trial. Bannon chose to show his contempt for Congress authority and the process by refusing to comply with the subpoena, Assistant U.S. Attorney Amanda Rose Vaughn told jurors. It wasn't optional, it wasn't a request, it wasn't an invitation, it was mandatory, Vaughn says. But Bannon lawyer Evan Corcoran told jurors that they should question whether evidence they'll be presented with during the trial was affected by politics and declare that Bannon was innocent of the charges. He suggested that the dates of the 2 subpoenas delivered to Bannon last September, one for documents and the other for testimony, were subject to negotiation. The dates were not fixed, Corcoran said, they were flexible. Bannon's case boils down to whether Bannon's defiance of the subpoenas was purposeful. The government argued that Bannon was thumbing his nose at the orderly process of the government. He didn't get stuck on a broken down Metro car, Vaughn said. He just decided not to follow the rules. Well, to be honest, we need more of that, but this is not official legal advice. Let's listen to the judge denial here briefly.
Let's go straight to you. Has the judge made a decision? Yes, there won't be any delay in the trial, so we are past this speed bump, and we'll probably get along with jury selection here shortly. The issue has been this letter that Benny Thompson sent to a lawyer for Steve Bannon on October 8th, in which Bannon talks about, Thompson talks about Bannon's claims that he can't respond to the subpoena because of executive privilege that Trump has asserted, and Bannon talks about that. What the lawyers for Bannon said today is, well, you know, the government should not be able to introduce this letter because it's hearsay. If we can't call Benny Thompson to testify, then this letter shouldn't be allowed. And the judge initially said, well, maybe it can be allowed if Bannon would simply proffer or make a written statement about his reliance on privilege, which the defense said, well, wait a minute. You said a while ago that we can't get into that issue at all here. So we want a continuance. We want a 1-month delay. So the judge called a recess, came back and said, OK, never mind, no proffer. Just if this letter is going to be introduced, you have to take out all the references, the 3 or 4 paragraphs in here of Benny Thompson's description of Bannon's assertion of privilege. So we're pretty well past that. And I think we're going to get along to jury selection here shortly, and then to opening statements by the government. And the government has said it only intends to call 2 or maybe 3 witnesses. So the government's case should be presented pretty quickly.
Joining me now, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Chief Medical Advisor to President.
Yeah, nobody likes Fauci. And that is a fair point, by the way. If you can't call Benny Thompson, which I don't believe you can in any situation with this, then yeah, all that's hearsay. And again, this really should be moved out of this venue as well. Especially since pretty much anybody who can be selected as a juror saw this happening in their backyard. How can you find impartiality this way? But let's face it, I don't think anybody really cares about impartiality at this point. So we'll see what happens with that. Bringing up the other side, Bannon attorney asked jurors to consider if contempt case affected by politics. Oh, you bet your butt it is. From Harper Neidig. An attorney representing Steve Bannon, the former Trump advisor charged with unlawfully denying a subpoena from the House committee investigating the January 6th Capitol Selfie Fest, suggested to a jury Tuesday that political motivations are driving the case against his client. Wait. Are there people that believe that it's not being driven by political motivations? I thought that was a given. During his opening statement on the first day of trial, defense attorney Evan Corcoran asked jurors to keep political considerations surrounding the case in mind as evidence is presented to them. Corcoran said that when jurors hear the witness testimony or see an exhibit during the trial, they should ask, is this piece of evidence affected by politics? All of it is affected by politics. That's why they're having the trial in D.C. Because there's a certain outcome that they want. Bannon is charged with 2 counts of contempt for failing to comply with subpoena from January 6th committee last year for documents and testimony. The trial began this week with a series of select committee hearings that have painted former President Trump and his allies as orchestrators of various schemes to undermine the 2020 election, who stoked fury among supporters with baseless claims of election fraud. Basically, what it's coming down to is, hang on. That's basically this. One of the hearings last week raised questions about who Bannon had been in contact with and what he knew ahead of the attack. Amanda Vaughn, an assistant U.S. attorney prosecuting the case against Bannon, said her opening statement Tuesday that the Select Committee had reason to believe that he may have been involved with or had conversations with people involved in the attack or the events leading up to it. Vaughn said the question before the jury was simple. Did Bannon willfully defy a lawful subpoena ordering him to provide information to congressional investigators? I'm going to go with that he did and he should have. But you know me, I would pay the fine before I help these jerks. Alright, some good news for my New York friends. From Politico, de Blasio drops out of the race for New York 10 and from electoral politics altogether. Hold on. I know what we got to say about this. If you listen closely, that actually wasn't my usual clip. That's actually all of New York saying goodbye to Bill de Blasio. From Joe Anuta, former Mayor Bill de Blasio is done running. Okay, bye. In a Tuesday tweet, the Park Slope resident, who represented the neighborhood on the city council and served as a city public advocate before moving to Gracie Mansion, announced that he was dropping out of a crowded congressional race to represent Lower Manhattan and parts of Brooklyn. The move, he noted, also marked his end of electoral politics. De Blasio ran for president in 2019 and more recently toyed with a run for governor before launching a bid for the 10th congressional district, an open seat created this year in the state's chaotic redistricting process. Hey Maloney, there's a place that you might be able to go and win. It's clear the people of New York 10 are looking for another option, and I respect that, de Blasio tweeted. Time for me to leave electoral politics and focus on other ways to serve. Well, don't let the door hit you on the butt on the way out. Bye-bye! From the Blaze. I got 2 blazes in a row, which I try not to do, but it's the only 2 stories that I had dealing with what happened in Indiana. So let's listen here. From the Blaze first, Sonny Hostin falsely claims Good Samaritan Elisha Dickin broke the law by carrying a gun into Indiana Mall where he stopped a mass shooting. I believe that he did, but I don't think that Simon Properties are currently interested in pressing charges. Let's listen.
They say that a good guy with a gun can control a bad guy with a gun. Well, we saw in Uvalde that that's not true.
And you saw it in Buffalo.
Yes, we saw it in Buffalo.
But we saw that it is true in Indiana.
It was true in Indiana. Look, that was a lucky moment. And you know what? I feel like this. If you're a good guy with a gun, you should not object to background checks or licensing or, a limitation on military-style weapons that kill thousands at once or hundreds at once. So why can't they just pull that off?
But with this Good Samaritan thing, listen, I was trained when I was at the Justice Department in firearms, and I was trained in defensive firearm training. It is very hard to hit a moving target. It is hard for people that are trained to hit a moving target. It is very lucky that Good Samaritan hit that moving target in that way. And he had a gun permit, but he wasn't supposed to be in the mall with a gun. So he broke the law, even though he was a Good Samaritan.
The law of Indiana is different than the law of the mall, of Simon Malls, and I would say that takes precedence when you save a life.
Well, he saved a life. But
guys, I gotta go. I gotta go. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We gotta go.
She got pushed back against, and now she's got to go back and run off and do whatever it is that Whoopi Goldbergs do at the end, towards the end of their retirement. But this brings up a good point, and I mean, leave it to somebody on The View to actually come up and think about the fact that, oh, hey, yes, there's a law in the mall, there's the law in Indiana, but you still have the private property rights. Hey, private property rights work when they go with the point that we're trying to talk about here. They would have hated them otherwise. Let's grab the other one here. Girlfriend of heroic armed citizen recounted to her grandmother how he saved her and ended Indiana Mall shooting. Do I have video of this? No. Just the news story about the shooting itself. The girlfriend of the armed citizen, hailed as a hero, recounted to her grandmother how he saved her life and ended the Indiana Mall shooting. WTHR-TV interviewed the grandmother of Shay Goldman, the 19-year-old girlfriend of 22-year-old Alicia Dickin, who was credited with talking down the murderous shooter on Sunday. I just know when I got the phone call that she was at the mall, I was scared, said the woman, who wanted to keep her identity private. She says, Grandma, I'm okay, but I'm terrified. And she then says, Grandma, what is this world coming to? And she says, I don't think I'll ever step foot in a mall again, the woman added. Probably a good idea. It's actually probably not the worst idea in the world. She said Goldman told her Dickin pushed her out of the way when the shooting started and told her to stay down. Goldman also said that she spotted the gunman near the bathrooms before he started shooting. She said she had that sick feeling, like looked behind her, beside her, and the mall shooter was walking behind her, and she said, Grandma, I see a long gun. And then all of a sudden Eli told her to get down and pushed her, and she said it went from there, the woman explained. Goldman said that she hid behind a kiosk as her boyfriend shot at the attacker. Police said the attacker tried to retreat back to the bathroom under the gunfire, but fell and died before being able to take cover. Beast! That's Giga Chad level right there. So, good job again on this hero for saving lives. Alright, we are down to the 9 o'clock. So let's see what else we have to get to today. There are a few things that I want to make sure I do. Let's check in and see what's happening. With a federal judge, Rand Paul accuses McConnell of secret White House deal over judge pick. From Callie Pattison. Kentucky's 2 Republican senators are trading blame for blowing up their prospective nomination of anti-abortion attorney to the federal bench, with Rand Paul accusing Minority Leader Mitch McConnell of forging a secret deal with the Biden admin. Look, McConnell's to blame for taking this because he tried to do it secretly and Democrats caught wind up in the state. Paul told reporters on Monday about the failed drive to nominate Chad Meredith as a district judge to the Bluegrass state. We never heard about it from McConnell's office, Paul added. And his people simply said, you can't do this, but we can. You know, we're so powerful, we can do whatever we want. The White House dropped its plan to nominate Meredith last week, pinning the blame on Paul for declining to support him. In considering potential district court nominees, the White House has learned that Rand Paul will not return a blue slip on Chad Meredith, a White House spokesman said, referring to the practice of senators backing the nominations of judges from their home state. Therefore, the White House will not nominate Mr. Meredith. Ms. McConnell also pointed the finger at Paul, saying his opposition was just utterly pointless. The net result of this is, it has prevented me from getting my kind of judge out of a liberal Democratic president, he told the New York Times on Friday. McConnell further insisted there was no deal, and that Paul was being left out of the loop on, and saying Biden's plan to nominate Meredith was a personal friendship gesture. Democrats in Kentucky and Washington were outraged by reports the White House planned to nominate Meredith, and their fury grew after leaked emails published by the Louisville Courier-Journal earlier this month indicated that Biden had planned to announce the nomination on June 24th, the day the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Yeah, if there's something going on behind closed doors between the majority leader and the executive branch, you're probably right to be suspicious. So, good on you for that one, Rand Paul. Briefly over here, because we'll know more about this tomorrow, but Biden is set to issue climate executive orders today. So we'll continue to watch this and see where that goes, what they do with that. Some of the numbers for the electric cars from Thomas Massey.
The average household uses 17% of their electricity for air conditioning. And that would mean the average household uses 1,870 kilowatt hours per year for air conditioning. If that average household plugged in electric cars, Do you know how much more electricity they would use in comparison to the air conditioning that air conditions their whole house?
No, but again, I would emphasize it will
Well, let me
be
help
less
you. Let me help you with
overall.
that first before we go on, because the numbers are important. It would take 4 times as much electricity to charge the average household's cars as the average household uses on air conditioning. Do you think that could be? So if we reach the goal by 2030 that Biden has of 50% adoption instead of 100% adoption, that means the average household would use twice as much electricity charging one of their cars as they would use for all of the air conditioning that they use for the entire year.
Four times as much electricity to charge the average car as the average household uses on air conditioning. Not to mention the fact that many of us don't spend anywhere close to that much on air conditioning. And how much that will raise our electric bills. Thank you, Thomas Massey, for bringing the numbers out that they don't want to tell you. Let's save these ones. Here's a funny one. From Zero Hedge. Place where Biden face planted off bike is named Brandon Falls on Google Maps. From Tyler Durden. Someone has managed to place a landmark in the Delaware location, naming it after the infamous Let's Go Brandon chant, which was initiated after the White House claimed NASCAR fans were not chanting F Joe Biden, when they totally were. At the time of writing, Brandon Falls is still listed as a historical landmark on Google Maps. Search Brandon Falls on Google Maps, and there it is, the end of the bike trail. I want to try this actually. And it's not there anymore. Although it looked like it tried. Yeah, it won't even bring it up now. Like, okay. So I tested this out over here. Like, it'll give you the address, but it won't drop the pin for it. 300 Lewis Drive. Brandon Falls Memorial. 300 Lewis, Delaware, over by Rehoboth Beach. Brandon Falls Memorial. 300 Lewis, Delaware. But nothing. No pin, no nothing. So they did clean it up at this point. Google Maps shows new historical landmark, Brandon Falls. Is this a good place for falling off your bike while shaking your hands with your sycophants? There's nowhere better. People are ruthless. I love it. How long until Google removes it? I'm surprised it's still up. It is not there anymore. Yeah, we just checked it. Apparently there's also a bike shop at Brandon Falls. Alright. Some fuel news for you from the Babylon Bee. North Dakota assassinates and dismembers journalists so Biden will let them drill for oil. After seeing President Biden travel to Saudi Arabia to beg for more oil, North Dakota decided to assassinate and dismember journalists so the president will let them drill for oil. Unable to find anyone with a name matching Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist killed by 2018 order of Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman, North Dakota had to settle for a local blogger, Jamal Cushman, who they assassinated and dismembered. It's tough, but this is how the U.S. government works. Sometimes we have to play their game, said Governor Doug Burgum from the capital Bismarck, previously thought to be a fictional town. The governor continued, while wrapping up a towel around his head. By the way, I now go by Crown Prince Dougdullah bin Burgum. The plan to assassinate a journalist to produce more oil seems to have worked, as Joe Biden immediately flew to the real town of Bismarck, begging to fist bump Crown Prince Bergam and take a look at his harem. Take a sniff of his harem. That's what they should have done. At the publishing time, Texas Governor Greg Abbott was planning on regaining permission to drill for oil by doing another 9/11. Thank you to the Babylon Bee. Alright. And the last one, before we do something that restores my faith in humanity, is we have more libs of TikTok. Non-binary teacher says that she read book about pronouns and gender identity, and then 2 students, including a first grader, came out as trans. Shock of all shocks, and I'll tell you what this means in just a moment.
I've been wanting to do content around this day, which is really important to me, as this is my first year as I'm out as a non-binary teacher. But it's hard. It's hard to think how to talk about it and how to make it pithy and catchy. And I sent what felt like a pretty vulnerable email out to my colleagues, suggesting a whole bunch of resources for each division and offering to come into their classes. And I'm so grateful to the 3 allies or accomplices who invited me into their class today to read. I just read They, She, He, Me, Free to Be to a grade 1 class, and I just read this book to a grade 1 class, and one of the students came out as trans. Staff knew she was trans, and we talked to her parents last night about me coming in, and they'd given it the go-ahead, and it was such beautiful proof that kids of any age are absolutely capable of accepting anything that they are taught with love, because her class didn't bat an eyelid. Didn't bat an eyelid at me not being a man, woman, both or neither. Didn't bat an eyelid at her having been born a boy, and were able to make all kinds of beautiful personal connections. So please, no matter what age your kids are or what age you teach, it is so important that you teach them that trans people are valuable. Hey friends, I'm back after another class, still with my lovely N95 redness, and I just wanted to say,
We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep them from disco, warn about San Francisco, make them wear pleated pants, we don't care. We'll convert your children. We'll make them tolerant and fair.
At first I didn't get why you'd be
been such a powerful day. I had another student come see me and make a plan to come out to his class because she hadn't felt confident doing that yet. And so that was really exciting to see that happen and to be able to facilitate that.
They're coming for your children, folks. They'll try to convert them no matter what. Vody McVoteface says, if she read Brave Little Toaster to them, I bet some of them would come out as appliances too. I like this one. Conservatives set the teachers open with their student, and in return the students trust them enough to open up. How exactly is this a bad thing? Disgusting. It's all disgusting. All right. But now that we have completely black-pilled at this point, let's talk about something that does restore my faith in humanity. So, reading from Twitter, and then I've got an article that goes with this as well. Jake Coco tweets out, "This hero needs a GoFundMe immediately." And I actually, even though I'm not a fan of GoFundMe, I do believe that is a correct assessment to make. 25-year-old pizza delivery man runs into burning house and saves 4 children, who tell him another might be in the house. He goes back in, finds the girl, and jumps out the window with her. Let's listen.
Yeah, that car right there, somebody pulled in to let him know their house is on fire. I saw him around back. That's the last time I seen him. Okay.
Hey guys, 6-year-old girl and a 23-year-old male still missing in the house somewhere.
What do you got?
6-year-old female and a 23-year-old male possibly inside.
Guys, come here, come here.
Everyone out? Yes. Yes. Sure.
Are you Zavion?
That's everybody.
Sit down. Need medics.
Come with me, man. Come with me. Come with me. We gotta get away from the house. Hey, we gotta get away from the house, okay?
Okay, baby. You're okay.
Get this dude a medal.
Please tell me that baby's okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, she's okay.
100%?
Yep, you're okay. You did good, dude. Okay?
Get that dude a medal. Like, seriously, right now. Let's find this guy, get him a medal. We got to talk to this guy. Needs recognition. Absolutely, 100%. Goes in, saves 4 children. Oh, hey, there might be number 5 in there. Back in. Get this guy a medal. Seriously. Reading from NDTV, pizza delivery man rescues 5 children from burning house. Internet calls him a superhero. The 25-year-old pizza delivery man saved 4 siblings, aged 1, 6, 13, and 18, and a 13-year-old who was sleeping over. A 25-year-old pizza delivery man in the U.S. recently risked his life to save 2 children and 3 teenagers from a burning house in Indiana. Taking to Twitter, Lafayette Police Department informed that Nicholas Bostic was driving past when he saw the home engulfed in flames. He immediately pulled into the driveway and dashed inside the house to get an 18-year-old and 4 youngsters to safety. The incident took place in Lafayette, Indiana on July 11th. Footage captured by the police officer's body camera shows Mr. Bostic carrying the child and exiting the burning house. It also shows the 25-year-old handing the kid over to first responders, which we just watched the video. In a press note, the police department informed that Mr. Bostic saved 4 siblings, ages 1, 6, 13, and 18, and a 13-year-old who was sleeping over. The 25-year-old ran to the back door and headed upstairs before getting some of the youngsters out, but when they told him the 6-year-old was still inside, Mr. Bostic headed back to the blaze, and despite thick smoke he found her, he then punched out a window so they could escape to safety. The police department informed that Mr. Bostic was seriously injured during the incident. Obviously. He suffered from severe smoke inhalation and even gravely cut his right arm. He has now been discharged. On the other hand, the 6-year-old was miraculously mostly uninjured, the cops said. Praise Jesus. Absolutely. I know and I understand that police and first responders have been Supreme Court educated away from being required to help you if you're in danger. And we have seen an amazing level of people stepping up to go and do what nobody else can. In Uvalde, both with the parents running in to go and get their children into harm's way to go save their children. And an off-duty Border Patrol agent rushing in and delivering the final shot. In Indiana, when a man went in to perpetrate a mass shooting and actually got off to the stats of a mass shooting and then was stopped by somebody who was, while going against the no-gun policy, still prepared, disciplined, and skilled enough to stop the incident before it turned into a 20-person massacre. This gentleman, seeing and doing the right thing, pulling off to the side of the road, seeing possibly, I don't know if it was that the fire trucks weren't there yet, first responders weren't there yet, or what the story is, but getting there and running in and helping people. I see more people on the side of the road helping change a tire, more people on the side of the road going and doing repairs when somebody's out there got their hood up. I was a little bit black-pilled when the fuel pump, well, the electrical circuit for the fuel pump in my truck kicked out. And in the whole time, only 2 people stopped to check on me while I was standing out there for an hour. But then I see more and more stuff like this, more stuff on the side of the road, especially when I was driving long distance over the past week, or past couple weeks, I guess. That was all the way on the 1st and then the 4th of this month. So it's been a couple weeks at this point. More and more people are deferring that they don't need government in their lives, that they can help their fellow man without having to have a person with a badge or fancy equipment or a fire truck. They're doing more of the right thing, and this so much restores my faith in humanity. We need more of this. We need definitely some more of this. 100%. It's something that I want to do more of. It's something that I want to see more people do more of. And it's amazing to see. It's definitely restored my outlook on life. It's definitely pulled me away from depression. And it's definitely something I'm happy to see. So definitely. And again, get this man a medal. Get this man a holiday. God bless for this man here. The cause of the fire is yet to be known. Who cares? Everybody got out safe. All right, that's all that I have for the day. We're done. We're out of here. Well, we've got some stuff left over here, but we got the important stuff, that's for sure. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, came and hung out with us, looked over the news, laughed and chatted here. If you chatted today, your name will be entered into the notebook of thanks that we will read from at the end of the week here. So come back and join us for that, and make sure you guys are getting your comments in. I do read your comments off air every single day, so I do see what you guys are saying and what you guys appreciate about the show and what you don't. We'll be back here tomorrow bright and early for more contemporary, more news and more headlines before we all get off to work. Hope to see you guys there. Hope to see more chatter there. And again, remember, save your spice for Friday, because that's when we're going to go back and look at some of the stuff here and go through some of the chat as well at the end of the program. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to saying thank you. Looking forward to seeing you guys here at every single show. Throw up those emotes, especially if you're over on Twitch, and you've earned the right to do so with the follow or the subscription. And we will see you here next time. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.